across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome to the home of Common Sense. Julia, of course, thanking her, back tomorrow at 10. What have we got? Well, we will be crossing live to hear President Donald Trump as soon as he opens his mouth, as he's arrived in Switzerland to meet world leaders at the 2026 Davos summit. He's expected to speak within the next hour, and it is looking to be feisty. I think he's going to tear them up. What? Yeah, it's going to be that, especially after those rather strong comments on NATO just yesterday in the White House. We'll come to that in just a couple of moments, because there is a bit of confusion around Trump as well. I'll tell you why in a second. Also this afternoon, the number of people who are claiming Britain's main benefit without having to work has risen by 1.5 million since Labour came to power. That is just 18 months ago. New figures show there are now almost 4.2 million people on universal credit with no requirement to work. This follows a surge in mental health claims. That is unsustainable. You haven't got to be an economist to know that. It's completely unsustainable. Can't carry on. How do we get out of it? And the Home Secretary has told forces that the police should be on the streets and not working behind desk jobs. Yawn, yawn. Every one of them says this. Shabana Mahmood has scrapped a grant for police forces that provide additional funding if they meet officer headcount targets, whatever that means. Just solve crime, give them the tools, give them the personnel, give them the morale, and you might find you've got a fairly efficient police force on your hands. Details to come, 0344 499 1000. So here's a question. Are you Team Europe or Team America? And it really does divvy up like this, where the world, as you might have noticed, in a very short period of time, is changing. We're on a perpetual shape-shifting journey, and we are heading for a collision. Now, that's not necessarily a pejorative. This could be a good collision, you know, like you have in history, where brilliance meets opportunity, where innovation and timing collide, that kind of thing. This could be a new dawn, an exciting rebirth of planet Earth, where the old order goes in the bin and a new way of thinking and doing business begins to emerge. But it's a battleground in many ways, but out of every conflict, of course, there is usually a positive that eventually emerges. It just depends on who you pick your battles with and how much conflict you can withstand. Donald Trump is heading up the campaign. He's the man on the bridge of the Starship. But is he going in the right direction? He certainly thinks he is. Last night, as I just mentioned, there he was in the White House giving another example of why he, and only he, is the man to fight the good fight.
And by the way, I did more for NATO than any other person alive or dead. Nobody's done for NATO. And I think for the most part, they'll tell you that. I think you could ask the Secretary General about that, but he said it a lot. I've done more for NATO than anybody, and I see all this stuff, but NATO has to treat us fairly, too. The big fear I have with NATO is we spend tremendous amounts of money with NATO, and I know we'll come to their rescue, but I just really do question whether or not they'll come to ours.
It's the modesty, isn't it, I think? That's the same. Any other person in human history, dead or alive, it's a beautiful dead or alive. Yeah, that's where he's at. However, yesterday in Davos, leader after leader lined up to state that the USA is not the only superpower on the block. Let's have a listen to the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. Here's what he had to say.
Having a place like Europe, which sometimes is too slow, for sure, and needs to be reformed, for sure, but which is predictable, loyal, and where you know that the rule of the game is just the rule of law, it's a good place.
Are you sure? I think he is, Emmanuel Macron. Europe is the sane one here, he says. And that wasn't all. He concluded with what is by any standards an open jibe to President Trump.
We do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world. But we do prefer respect to bullies. We do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. You're welcome in Europe, and you are more than welcome to France.
Those glasses do nothing for the cocaine rumours, by the way. So Europe is the sensible one. The USA are merely bully boys with loud mouths and no sense of the rule of law. Is Trump a bully? Is he all talk? Is he the world's biggest nightmare in this battle for our future? Let's have a listen to one of his arch nemesis, Gavin Newsom. He's the governor of California. Here he is with his assessment of the American president.
Donald Trump, he's a T-Rex. You mate with him or he devours you. One or the other.
You mate with him or he devours you. Now, I mean, he would say that, wouldn't he? But here's the thing. The criticism of Trump is not just coming from the usual suspects. I mean, there's the obvious list. Former president, arch right-winger George W. Bush. John Bolton, his former security advisor over there in the White House. Marjorie Taylor Greene. You don't get much more on that part of the spectrum than her. The late Dick Cheney opposed him. Mark Esper, Dan Coates, Alicia Griffin. The list goes on. Even over here, I'm starting to read headlines. Usually the loyal fan base, the Daily Telegraph, Ambrose Evans Pritchard, one of the most respected journalists. He says Trump has crossed all lines. It is time to cut off his global credit card. Similarly, in the Daily Telegraph, Jeremy Warner, Starmer is impotent before the madness of King Donald. Britain must rebuild its economy to protect itself against the US president's wrecking ball. And back in the United States, US Trump's approval rating is currently at the same levels as Joe Biden's. Goodness me. Critics point out that despite the noise and a plethora of videos on things like immigration control, he's deported half of what Obama deported in a single year. So what is going on? Is this T-Rex all noise and no substance, or is he actually the answer to our prayers in the West? And what about Europe? I mean, we are Europeans, by the way, not EU, Europeans. Should we not be batting for our own team? Why do some of us find ourselves seduced by the Atlanticist approach to things? Should we be Team Europe or Team America? 0344 499 1000. Your assessment, please, of Donald Trump. He's about a year, just over a year, into the job proper. How do you sense that is? The new world order that's being carved out. Are the Europeans right on this? The Macrons and the Scholzes and, well, dare I say it, even the Starmers. Are we on the right team, or is Trump the man who is speaking common sense? This is about the battleground for our future. Quite seriously, it's going to look very different in a couple of years. Your assessment, please, 0344 499 1000, and we will bring you, of course, that speech by Donald Trump. The trouble is, and Chloe Dobbs has just walked in to the studio as well, looking through the big stories of the day. The trouble is, Chloe, with the Donald Trump speech, you don't know whether that's going to be 10 minutes or about an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, remember he had the auto cue go down previously. And
that was at the UN, wasn't it?
Yeah, so many conferences, I can't remember which one it was, but that was quite something. He went on for ages. And there is a prepared speech that journalists will get where they can see what he's expected to say so they can report on it. But what they're saying is we can't trust him to stick to this. Yeah. There's always a big chance with Trump that he's going to go off script. I presume he'll end up with some press questions as well. God knows what he's going to say. I've been seeing some videos. Some people they do bets on things that Donald Trump is going to say in a speech, and they've been making loads of money. So they'll put down like $1,000 on Donald Trump is going to say fake news in this speech, and then they end up with like $100,000 profit. He's
definitely going to say Greenland.
I'm quite tempted to start doing that, actually.
Well, we know there's certain things he probably will. It's interesting, he was asked about Macron on his way to the airport, and he said, well, it doesn't really matter, he's not going to be there in a couple of months, so, didn't really care. He's brilliantly dismissive of people that he doesn't respect. But ordinarily, certainly publicly, he does kind of respect Starmer. That's what he says. But he said yesterday at the White House that Starmer has got to straighten out the UK. Yeah, he's starting to get tough on Starmer by the looks of it, which we haven't really seen until now. I mean, when Starmer first went to the Oval Office, they both seemed very pleased with each other and both buttering each other up. And although J.D. Vance sort of went for Starmer a little bit about free speech, they were
fairly placid about it. But then as time has gone on, well, on free speech, especially with the whole row over Grok and X, they've started to be a bit more vocal about that. And on the one hand, as a Brit, I want us to have a good relationship with the US. That was something that people were quite nervous about with a Labour government when the whole government is full of people who have said all sorts of horrible things about Trump in the past, and they have gone on quite well. But on the other hand, we almost want Trump to force our government to do what it needs to do, for example, on immigration, for example, on free speech. And it seems like, I think Trump was putting on a good face to build a good relationship with Starmer to start with. I think that's partly why he approved of the Chagos deal initially, is he thought, it's not really worth a big argument over this to sever the relations with the UK. But I think now he seems to have been annoyed and is starting to turn against Starmer. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because he was asked about Starmer and also Macron, and I thought this was brilliant. He said, look, this is Trump. He said, they get a bit rough when I'm not around, but when I am around, they treat me really nicely. So it was a great dig at hypocrisy, essentially, because Trump is very different. When he is with people, he will say the same thing as when he's not with them. He doesn't mind. He'll sit there. I mean, we always talk about the famous Zelensky moment, but Ursula von der Leyen got a right old pasting as well, or certainly the EU did when she was there. So he's not afraid to say stuff like that. And he's talked about, of course, Chagos, a great stupidity. I mean, that's weird because he did previously back it. He signed it off.
But I'm glad that he is now. I think, as I said, I think he knew that it was idiotic to start with, but thought, oh, well, if the UK want to be stupid and end up paying Mauritius a load of money, but we still end up with the base because they're renting it, then fine. But now he has pointed out that it's stupid. I think I'm quite glad because as a Brit, when I was seeing them sat in the Oval Office, him sort of signing off on it, shaking hands, I thought, oh, God, no, please, Trump, please tell Starmer this is a stupid idea and make him back out of it, because it is bonkers, this Chagos deal.
It is. The immigration thing you mentioned, quite rightly. I mean, this is fascinating to me, how both... I mean, some of this is the mainstream media's fault, as it's called, but some of it is just I suppose, just a lack of curiosity about facts. So on immigration, what's interesting is this ICE outfit, the immigration. What's it stand for now? Immigration
and Customs Enforcement.
Customs Enforcement. That's it. You know, they talk about this as if these are Trump's Nazis who are going in there. ICE have been around forever. They were very active under President Obama. The boss, Tom Homan, was the boss under Obama of ICE. He's the boss now. It's the same bloke. Here's the interesting one. 2012. Obama deported 409,000 people. 2025, Trump deported 290,000 people. The difference is Trump's filming all of this. He's showing what's happening. And, of course,
Which acts as a deterrent.
100%. Yeah. So I think that's the difference. Every American president, by the way, on average deports about 400,000 people, regardless of who they are. It just happens naturally every year. So Trump's made a big thing of it. He's made it very visual. I think that's probably acted as a deterrent. But it's just kind of interesting that people who hate Donald Trump have marked out this ICE thing as, you evil man, you're deporting all of these people. Their hero, their fanboy, Barack Obama, did twice the amount. Nobody said a flipping word. I
know. It's when the Republicans do it, it's evil, but the Democrats do it, and it's no problem whatsoever. As you say, they have been documenting it, which makes people think that it's far more prevalent than it maybe was previously. And look, I understand if people want to go out and protest the shooting of the lady in her car. People have a lot of very mixed opinions on that, but I don't think because, even if that was a wrong thing for that officer to do, I don't think because you get one rogue officer, that means that the entire force and the entire administration needs to be discredited as a bunch of, evil fascists, right? It's completely ridiculous. And for me, I just find it insane that we're living in an era where having border control and saying if you enter a country illegally, you will be removed is something that's considered so controversial, such that everyone calls you fascist, and they talk about potentially having civil war in the United States.
Let's have a listen then. Another clip from yesterday, that press conference in the White House. This is Donald Trump talking about Mr. Macron and Mr. Starmer.
They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it.
Yeah, that point is quite powerful, isn't it? Get rid of the windmills. As far as he didn't swear there. He doesn't like a windmill. Kills the birds. Beautiful, beautiful birds.
Oh yeah, I listened to about like 3 hours of him on Joe Rogan's podcast moaning up. It was almost the whole thing was him moaning about windmills the whole time.
Yeah, he hates a windmill.
I mean, look, I don't hate windmills as much as him, but he is absolutely right that we should be. We are nowhere near ready to be 100% reliant on renewables. Yep. Not even close. We're what, like 10% or something, right? And then you've got idiot Ed Miliband saying, "Oh, let's cancel all the new licenses for the North Sea as if we're ready for 100% renewables." And all it's doing it is one of the most difficult. You talk to any business, especially any energy-intensive business, it is the number one thing holding back our economy. Their energy costs are like the highest in the world. Yeah. It's crazy.
That is, Ed Miliband, of course, he is a professional half-wit. We should just add to that, and doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. This is evangelism to Ed, isn't it? But we'll, I'm sure, revisit Ed Miliband at some point in the programme. Donald Trump, are you Team America or Team Europe? Just briefly on that question, Chloe, because, of course, we should be Team Europe.
On Greenland?
Generally speaking, the way the world is being carved up now, I mean, it has got that sort of Oceana Orwell moment about it, where we got these chunks of superpowers galvanising and creating, shoring up their power base, as it were.
I think overall, over the whole administration...
In whose hands are we safer?
I'm very glad that Trump is in the White House leading the West. I don't trust Starmer, and if it was Starmer and Kamala Harris, absolutely no way at all. But I think that on Greenland, I'm a little bit on the fence, but completely back Trump on what he did in Venezuela, on what he did with the Iranian nuclear facilities, for example, all these things that were quite controversial, but I think very much justified.
We'll take a brief pause. That question, should we be Team Europe or Team America? 0344 499 1000. That is where you'll find us. You can leave a voice note there as well, and of course you can message us on 87222. Chloe Dobbs is with us. More comment from Chloe. Those extraordinary figures about the amount claiming universal credit now. These are eye-watering numbers. We'll bring you that story. We're going to be crossing live to Donald Trump's speech at Davos. I think he's going to tear them a new one over there. We'll find out more about that as it happens. Lines are open. It's 1:20. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reid, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Nikki in Bristol says, I like Trump because borders matter, jobs matter, energy independence matters, law and order matters. Feelings don't run a country. Governing a country isn't a therapy session. I love that last point as well. Feelings don't run a country. And of course, on the left, I know this is a little bit of a stereotype. I get it. There are nice, decent, thought-provoking lefties out there. Of course there are. But when you engage emotionally in debate, that's why in courtrooms you're told forget emotions and sentiment, look at facts, and that's the problem between the left and the right. And Trump is very good. He's just very good at selling it and telling it like it is. Sometimes the headlines or the detail betray his headlines, but nonetheless, he creates a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you see these lefties out on these protests, and their arguments are just so hysterical, and they haven't thought through any of the facts. No, it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, one baby has died, therefore we have to go on this protest all day long for Gaza, not thinking at all about who are Hamas, what are the consequences of being in power, and so on, right? Just completely illogical. And look, the reality is that emotional arguments appeal far more to human beings than logic and statistics, right? Sure. But that's sort of where politicians have to come in and try and bridge that gap. If you try and communicate your policies to people in a way where you just talk at them like an economist, then they're going to get bored to death,
well, and
you're simply not going to win votes. But that's
people remember the feeling they're given.
Exactly,
not always
and so you've got to make sure that your policy is backed by logic and statistics and careful research, and then communicate it in a way that maybe has a bit of emotion added into it to make sure it appeals. But if you ran the whole country on these hysterical lefty arguments, God help us.
You'd be a right old mess. That's why we are where we are in this country. Let's move to this story. This is jaw-dropping. The number of people now claiming Britain's main benefit without requirement to work has risen by 1.5 million. Not in the last 10 years or the last 20 years, but since Labour came to power. That was like 20 minutes ago. New figures show there are almost 4.2 million people on universal credit with no work requirements whatsoever. This follows a surge in mental health claims. Let's have a listen to Keir Starmer, who said they were going to crack down on all of this.
It's very important that we reform the welfare system because it doesn't work and it traps people.
Was that a... In fairness to Mr Starmer, I think that was a technical glitch rather than...
he's not the most confident public speaker, so that could be real.
before the clip went wrong, it was already awful because, we need to really crack this. It's like you're not cracking it.
Was all talk and no action from this government on everything, not just that. I mean, all this talk about smashing the gangs, and we found out that Starmer has got the highest number of people who have come in on the boats compared to any other Prime Minister. He's had more people come in on boats in 19 months than Boris had in 39 months, for example, and he's done more than Rishi Sunak as well. It's just one of many damning statistics, right? You can't believe a word this man says, can you?
Not really. Not really. Let's move to, and in fact, if anybody's got a view, by the way, on how we solve this, it's sort of become physics immovable object, this whole benefit thing. And there was, of course, the time when Labour were going to do something about it. In fact, they weren't really, and it was only tinkering. Do you remember they were going to try and stop the increase of benefit? No,
they weren't trying to stop the increase. They were trying to allow it to still increase, but slightly decrease the rate at which it increased.
Decrease the rate.
Right? So it would still go up massively,
never go down,
but just a little bit less than expected. And they wanted to just chop 5 million off a bill that was going to balloon to 100 billion, and the backbenchers held them to ransom, even though they've got a huge majority. So now they've just given up. And if you look at the graph on this, so you can see the number who do not have to work has gone up since Labour came to power, from 2.7 million to 4.2 million. But then the number who are either in work or are required to look for work has stayed kind of steady. So it's not like all three categories have gone up together. It's specifically the proportion of people that are on universal credit who do not have to go to work at all is huge. It's ballooning at quite the rate.
100%. This from Ash in Slough says, let me get this right. This was the same Macron, after the Macron clips we played, that was talking about loyalty to allies and the rule of law, who's allowed hundreds of thousands of migrants to come across the Channel to cause unrest and unprecedented civil upset in his neighbours. That is true, but of course it's not just... I mean, people talk about the Calais-Dover story. If you go to the centre of Paris, I went down there a couple of years back and we did a kind of more than just a news report, not quite a documentary. We did a sort of 20-minute piece on this, and we went down talking to people. I mean, these arches just on the, not even the outskirts of Paris, but the outskirts of the main centre of Paris, if you like. And it was just crammed with thousands and thousands of people living rough under these arches. We spoke to them. They said, I mean, they wanted help. I think these were genuine, desperate people. That didn't make it France's problem, but he's done nothing about it. No leader in Europe has done anything about it. Even in America, where they very publicly show a lot of the videos, they've still got a huge problem.
Yeah, and these people who have either been born in France or decided to live there quite some time ago, thinking they're in a nice, safe first world country. Well, it's now sort of become the third world, and one of the big problems for France is a lot of the African migrants, they speak French. They don't speak very good English, but they speak French. For example, if they're from Tunisia, and so specifically the one country in Europe that they all want to go to is France. Also in the north of France, in the north of Europe, in France and Germany, you've got a lot more job opportunities than in Italy. So a lot of people, they'll arrive at Lampedusa, they'll be put in Italy, and they will then sneak into France because the job opportunities are better. But they don't get all the cushy hotels and everything like they do in the UK, so you end up with a lot of them sleeping rough. In Paris, I know when the Olympics were coming up, they were really brutal on really making the city centre, they cleared it out. They got I don't know what they did with the homeless people, they probably just pushed them more to the outskirts. So it's city centre now. But still, there's a lot of havoc going on.
We didn't get on to any of our other stories because Finn has suggested we have to break now. He's like, he said, Trump's about to speak.
Oh, aren't we more important?
I'll give it half an hour before Trump speaks. No, we've got to speak to some guests as well, in fairness. But we didn't get on to the ECHR, and trans prisoners can't be banned from women's jails, apparently, according to one SNP minister. Brief word on that, very briefly.
They should just listen to the Supreme Court, ignore the ECHR, they're idiots.
Absolutely that. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And here's the point. One here, it doesn't say who it's from, says Donald Trump is saving the West from itself. The globalists are losing the argument daily. When Farage becomes PM, they will become extinct, thank God. Yeah, and that's the dilemma, isn't it? I mean, you don't want... I mean, the globalist thing, there's about 7 different ways of looking at what is meant by globalism. Do you want partnerships and basic agreements with your allies? Yes. What constitutes the West? Now, all of Europe, as well as all of America, of course, is the West in that sense. First world countries, you might want to call it in another sense. But in terms of who's heading that up, what the mentality around it, the European mentality, many people see as abject failure, and immigration is the obvious one that people point to when we talk about exactly that. Do you concur? Donald Trump has firmly told Keir Starmer to straighten out the UK. He's talked about London having a lot of problems. He speaks today at Davos. We're going to be taking that speech when it happens. Should be in the next 30 minutes, we think, but this is Donald Trump. Who the heck knows? But it is expected. Let's get a word on this. Should we be Team Europe or Team America? Let's speak to Anand Menon, Professor of European Politics and Foreign Affairs, King's College, London. Anand, good afternoon to you.
Hi, how are you doing?
Nice to have you with us. I mean, this is an interesting time we are going through. I said at the beginning of the show, it's almost like there's a battle going on here or something at the moment. A battle, I don't know quite what for. It's got slightly, I know it, look, everybody defaults usually quite lazily to George Orwell, but there is something a bit 1984-y about the carving up of the regions of planet Earth.
Well, I mean, it's worth bearing in mind that when the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times, it's a curse, not a blessing. So, it is problematic. And I mean, what's happening at the moment is a lot of the assumptions on which we've based the way we go about international politics have been totally upended. And at the moment, you started with that question, should we be Team Europe, should we be Team United States? To date, Keir Starmer has basically said neither and both. That is to say, the key thing for British foreign policy is not to have to make that choice. The danger with what's happening in Greenland is he's being pushed towards making that choice, and it's very uncomfortable. Remember, on his desk is sitting that invitation to join the Board of Peace. He's been sort of confronted with all these binaries, and it must be, that invitation must feel like a bit like to us, like your sort of annual reminder to go to the dentist. It's a bit of mail that you wish you hadn't received.
Yes, and it's interesting. The Trump story is very interesting, and no leader that we've ever seen speaks in the kind of way he does. We played the little NATO clip from yesterday in the White House. I never heard any president or prime minister say, no one in the history of the world has ever done more than I've done, dead or alive, in this case for NATO. But he speaks in those kind of tones, and there's something quite mesmeric about it, and it's interesting, and we sort of laugh. And I think to a certain extent it sort of does work, but then you delve deeper into the headlines. His approval ratings at the moment are around about the same as where Joe Biden's was at the same period in office. His deportation program, which is the optics are out there for all to see. He loves to make sure they make the evening news, but they're half of what Obama did in 2012. So it's interesting. Fact and reality, they're colliding here at the moment. I mean, it's interesting to know who's going to win that battle.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really fascinating to watch Donald Trump. And on the one hand, he has got this style that either people love or they're appalled by it. It's very, very divisive, and it's very, very divisive in the United States. But I think what's key in the United States is for that chunk of undecided voters, the people who could conceive of voting for Trump, aren't appalled by it, but maybe won't. The key thing is the economy, and particularly what they call affordability, what we call the cost of living. And I think essentially, for all the noise and bluster, the interesting tension at the heart of this is if you start a trade war, one of the likely consequences is higher inflation, and that could have a massive impact on ordinary voters. And one of the things we don't know about Donald Trump, I mean, to be blunt, is how much does he care about the midterms? A lot of his Republican colleagues, I think, are hoping and praying that he'll turn the economy around as a priority and not get diverted by things like Greenland. But for him, he seems to have other ideas in his head.
It's interesting looking at, we were sort of comparing and contrasting in a way, Trump in the White House and the NATO comment we just mentioned, and there is, just fairly typical stuff. We could have picked one of 100 different statements on a variety of issues. And then we played the clip of Macron yesterday in Davos, channeling his inner Tom Cruise, of course, with those new shades. And that's a whole other story, of course. And, of course, his point was, it was very European leadery, if that makes sense. It was almost like, there's a group of spads that are probably on a WhatsApp group that say, oh, could you pass me the Davos speech, please? And they just sort of share it, and it could be Scholz reading it out. It might be Starmer reading out. Oh, here in Europe, we're very calm and sensible. We're quite predictable. You know what you get. And I'm thinking, and just over there is Trump telling us, well, I'm going to sort this thing. I'm taking it no more. I'm as mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. And you can see the real difference. I think, Europe is perhaps guilty of being complacent, if nothing else. Would that be fair?
To an extent. I mean, I think you need to distinguish between style and content. And I think it is absolutely the case that most mainstream politicians struggle to express themselves in ways that are clear and punchy, and certainly nothing like President Trump expresses himself. In terms of substance, however, I mean, Macron has said no to that Board of Peace. I mean, his message is Europe needs to fight back, use the trade bazooka. And if you want the ultimate expression of that, it's the speech that Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, made yesterday, where it's very measured language, the sort of language you'd expect from a former central banker. But the message was very, very punchy, which was the old world is over. We need need to recreate a new world. We need to hedge against the United States we can't trust anymore. So I think don't be too deceived by the tone or the language, because sometimes the substance can actually be quite punchy.
That's true, but in that Venn diagram, of course, there's always that bit in the middle, and you know where the two things meet. And certainly, again, to mention, not that this is a discussion about NATO specifically, but I think we could reasonably argue. And back in 2016, wasn't it? You remember when Trump kind of properly tore into Angela Merkel, you know, to her face. In fairness, you know, he doesn't do this stuff when no one's listening. He'll sit next to these people and tell them, pull your finger out, you're not putting enough money in. And his point there was kind of fair enough, really, wasn't it? America's been the world policeman. We're putting way more into this thing called NATO than any of you guys. You need to up your game. And they did.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And bear in mind, Trump didn't invent this line of argument. President Obama was saying the same thing in much more measured, diplomatic and polite ways, but he was saying the same thing back in his presidency. This is a long-running theme.
But they didn't do anything about it, did they? With Trump, they did.
Well, with Trump, well, let's see. With Trump, certainly some member states have. I think, you know, those on the frontier or close to Russia didn't need to be told and were doing it anyway. Some others seem to have responded to President Trump, but the proof of the pudding will be in whether the money's spent and what it's spent on. But, you know, to go back to the question, you're absolutely right. When it comes to this issue about so-called burden sharing, we have been free riding on the Americans for a long time, expecting them to ensure our security. So, I mean, this is sometimes for Trump's opponents, one of the annoying things is there's quite often a grain of truth to these things that he says, even if he says it in ways that make some people blanch.
And if we move ahead 5 years, is the world like, when the fog has cleared, are we likely to be in a better place or a more troubling place?
I think the one thing I would say about that is in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what Trump is doing to American foreign policy will continue to happen, in the sense that America's going to be less interested in Europe, more interested in Asia. There is a secular trend going on here, and Trump's a shock, but we need to get used to this direction of travel.
And on that point, let's cross over now to Davos. President Donald Trump speaking live.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. It's great to be back in beautiful Davos, Switzerland, and to address so many respected business leaders, so many friends, few enemies, and all of the distinguished guests. It's a who's who, I will say that. I've come to this year's World Economic Forum with truly phenomenal news from America. Yesterday marked the one-year anniversary of my inauguration, and today, after 12 months back in the White House, our economy is booming, growth is exploding, productivity is surging, investment is soaring, incomes are rising, inflation has been defeated, our previously open and dangerous border is closed and virtually impenetrable, and the United States is in the midst of the fastest and most dramatic economic turnaround in our country's history. Under the Biden administration, America was plagued by the nightmare of stagflation, meaning low growth, and high inflation, a recipe for misery, failure, and decline. But now, after just 1 year of my policies, we are witnessing the exact opposite: virtually no inflation and extraordinarily high economic growth. Growth like, I believe, you'll see very shortly, our country has never seen before, perhaps no country has ever seen before. Over the past 3 months, core inflation has been just 1.6%. Meanwhile, fourth quarter growth is projected to be 5.4%, far greater than anybody other than myself and a few others had predicted. Since the election, the stock market has set 52 all-time high records. So that's in 1 year, 52 records, adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts, 401ks, and people's savings. People are doing very well. They're very happy with me. Since my inauguration, we've lifted more than 1.2 million people off of food stamps, and after 4 years in which Biden secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in our country. Think of that, $1 trillion, substantially less than that. In 4 years, we've secured commitments for a record-breaking $18 trillion, and we think when the final numbers come out, they'll be closer to $20 trillion of investment. That's never been done by any country at any time, not even close. Just over 1 year ago, under the radical left Democrats, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, the United States economy is on pace to grow at double the rate that was projected by the IMF just last April. And with my growth and tariff policies, it should be much higher. I really believe we can be much higher than that. And this is all great news, and it's great for all nations. The USA is the economic engine on the planet, and when America booms, the entire world booms. It's been the history. When it goes bad, it goes bad. You all follow us down, and you follow us up, and we're at a point that I don't believe we've ever been. I never thought we could do it this quickly. My biggest surprise is I thought it would take more than a year, maybe like a year and 1 month. But it's happened very quickly. This afternoon, I want to discuss how we have achieved this economic miracle, how we intend to raise living standards for our citizens to levels never seen before, and perhaps how you too and the places where you come from can do much better by following what we're doing, because certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good, but it's not heading in the right direction. In recent decades, it became conventional wisdom in Washington and European capitals that the only way to grow a modern Western economy was through ever-increasing government spending, unchecked mass migration, and endless foreign imports. The consensus was that so-called dirty jobs and heavy industry should be sent elsewhere, that affordable energy should be replaced by the Green New Scam, and that countries could be propped up by importing new and entirely different populations from faraway lands. This was the path that Sleepy Joe Biden administration and many other Western governments very foolishly followed, turning their backs on everything that makes nations rich and powerful and strong. And there's so much potential in so many nations. The result was record budget and trade deficits and a growing sovereign deficit driven by the largest wave of mass migration in human history. We've never seen anything like it. Quite frankly, many parts of our world are being destroyed before our very eyes, and the leaders don't even understand what's happening. And the ones that do understand aren't doing anything about it. Virtually all of the so-called experts predicted my plans to end this failed model would trigger a global recession and runaway inflation. But we have proven them wrong. It's actually just the opposite. In 1 year, our agenda has produced a transformation like America has not seen in over 100 years. Instead of closing down energy plants, we're opening them up. Instead of building ineffective, money-losing windmills, we're taking them down and not approving any. Instead of empowering bureaucrats, we're firing them, and they're going out and getting jobs in the private sector for 2 and 3 times what they were making in government. So they started off hating me when we fired them, and now they love me. Instead of raising taxes on domestic producers, we're lowering them and raising tariffs on foreign nations to pay for the damage that they've caused. In 12 months, we have removed over 270,000 bureaucrats from the federal payrolls, the largest single-year reduction in government employment since the end of World War II. Nobody thought that was coming, but we had no choice. To make a country great, you can't have all federal jobs. We've cut federal spending by $100 billion and slashed the federal budget deficit by 27% in the single year. It's going to go down quite a bit more from that, driving inflation way down from the record highs of the Biden administration. Every month, they went up and up and up. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every single new regulation, but instead I've cut, actually till this point, 129 regulations for every one new regulation approved. So every time they come in with a new regulation, we do at least 10, but so far it's averaging out to 129, if you can believe it. In July, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. We also provided 100% expensing, that's the one they like, and bonus depreciation for all new equipment and capital investments to help companies expand and shift production to America. They are so in love with that. They build a plant, they're able to deduct it immediately, the whole thing, rather than waiting 38 to 41 years in the old days. This is a miracle taking place. Nobody thought it would ever be done by any country, but it's done by us. It was what made my first term the most successful four-year term that we've ever had from a financial standpoint. And now we've upped it. This is a 10-year program, not a one-year program. But you're allowed to deduct everything in 1 year. It used to be 38 to 41 years. With tariffs, we've radically reduced our ballooning trade deficit, which was the largest in world history. We were losing more than $1 trillion every single year, and it was just wasted. It was going to waste. But in 1 year, I slashed our monthly trade deficit by a staggering 77%, and all of this with no inflation. Something everyone said could not be done. There were a couple of brilliant people that actually thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. Now they all think I'm doing the right thing because they can't believe the numbers. American exports are now up by more than $150 billion. Domestic steel production is up by 300,000 tons a month, and it's doubling over the next 4 months. It's doubling and tripling, and we have steel plants being built all over the country. Nobody thought they'd see that. Factory construction is up by 41%, and that number is really going to skyrocket right now because that's during a process that they're putting in to get their approvals, and we've given very, very quick, fast approvals. In the process, we've made historic trade deals with partners covering 40% of all U.S. trade. Some of the greatest companies and countries in the world. We have countries as our partner, too. The European nations, Japan, South Korea. They're our partners. They've gone into massive deals with us, especially on oil and gas. And these agreements raise growth and cause stock markets to boom, not only in the U.S., but virtually every country that came to make a deal, because, as you've learned, when the United States goes up, you follow. It's really become a staple. In America, I've stopped the nation-wrecking energy policies that drive up prices while sending jobs and factories to the world's worst polluters. They are indeed polluters. Under Sleepy Joe Biden, new domestic oil and gas leases fell by 95%. Think of that. Then they wonder, why was gasoline going up so fast? The gasoline actually topped $5 a gallon, and some places $7 a gallon, and more than 100 major power plants were violently shut down by incompetent people that had no idea what the hell they were doing. Under my leadership, U.S. natural gas production is at an all-time high by far. U.S. oil production is up by 730,000 barrels a day, and last week we picked up 50 million barrels from Venezuela alone. Venezuela has been an amazing place for so many years, but then they went bad with their policies. 20 years ago, it was a great country, and now it's got problems, but we're helping them. And those 50 million barrels, we're going to be splitting up with them, and they'll be making more money than they've made in a long time. Venezuela is going to do fantastically well. We appreciate all of the cooperation we've been giving. We've been giving great cooperation. Once the attack ended, The attack ended, and they said, let's make a deal. More people should do that. But Venezuela is going to make more money in the next 6 months than they've made in the last 20 years. Every major oil company is coming in with us. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see. The leadership of the country has been very good. They've been very, very smart. The price of gasoline is now below $2.50 a gallon in many states, $2.30 a gallon in most states, and will soon be averaging less than $2 a gallon. In many places, it's already down even lower, $1.95 a gallon. Numerous states are at $1.99, numbers that nobody has heard for years. Actually, since my last administration, we got it down to around those numbers. I've signed an order directing and approval of many new nuclear reactors. We're going heavy into nuclear. I was not a big fan because I didn't like the risk, the danger, but they have the progress they've made with nuclear is unbelievable, and the safety progress they've made is incredible. We're very much into the world of nuclear energy, and we can have it now at good prices and very, very safe. And we're leading the world in AI by a lot. We're leading China by a lot. I think President Xi respects what we've done, in part because I've allowed these big companies building these massive buildings to build their own electric capacity. They're building their own power plants, which when added up is more than any country anywhere in the world is doing. I read recently an article in the Wall Street Journal that China's creating so much energy, and they are. You got to hand it to them. But we're creating as much or more, and we're letting them do that. I'm very proud of it. It was my idea. I said, you can't create this much energy. We needed more than double the energy currently in the country just to take care of the AI plants. And I said, we can't do that. We have an old grid system. And I came up with the idea, you know, you people are brilliant. You have a lot of money. Let's see what you can do. You can build your own electric generating plants. And they looked at me. They didn't believe me. All of the names that are, I think, in the room right now, if you want to know the truth, they didn't believe it. And I said, no, you can't. They came back 2 weeks, and they didn't have the plant. They said, we thought you were kidding. I said, no, not only am I not kidding, you're going to have your approvals within 2 weeks. I always say nuclear will take 3 weeks. But most aren't going that. They're going oil and gas. They're even going coal in some cases. Because of my landslide election victory, the United States avoided the catastrophic energy collapse which befell every European nation that pursued the Green New Scam, perhaps the greatest hoax in history. The Green New Scam, windmills all over the place, destroy your land, destroy your land. Every time that goes around, you lose $1,000. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. Here in Europe, we've seen the fate that the radical left tried to impose on America. They tried very hard. Germany now generates 22% less electricity than it did in 2017. And it's not the current chancellor's fault. He's solving the problem. He's going to do a great job. But what they did before he got there, I guess that's why he got there. And electricity prices are 64% higher. The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3. And you're sitting on top of the North Sea, and they like to say, well, you know, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is incredible. They don't let anybody drill. Environmentally, they don't let them drill. They make it impossible for the oil companies to go. They take 92% of the revenues. So the oil companies say, we can't do it. They came to see me. Is there anything you can do? I want Europe to do great. I want UK to do great. Sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. In fact, their electricity prices have soared 139%. There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit. And they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though. And I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way. Stupid people buy them. The consequences of such destructive policies have been stark, including lower economic growth, lower standards of living, lower birth rates, more socially disruptive migration, more vulnerability to hostile foreign adversaries, and much, much smaller militaries. The United States cares greatly about the people of Europe. We really do. I mean, look, I am derived from Europe. Scotland and Germany, 100% Scotland, my mother, 100% German, my father. And we believe deeply in the bonds we share with Europe as a civilization. I want to see it do great. That's why issues like energy, trade, immigration, and economic growth must be central concerns to anyone who wants to see a strong and united West, because Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. These beautiful, beautiful places. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong. Ultimately, these are matters of national security, and perhaps no current issue makes the situation more clear than what's currently going on with Greenland. Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? I was going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired, there's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it, when I went in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open, the inflation was raging, everything was bad with the United States when I came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened. And I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening. Biden had given Ukraine and NATO $350 billion, a staggering sum, $350 billion. I came in, and just like the southern border, just like inflation, just like our economy, I said, wow, this place is in trouble, meaning our country. All of these things were out of control. But the border was out of control. We fixed it with the strongest border anywhere in the world. And I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. India, Pakistan. I settled other wars that were Vladimir Putin called me, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He said, I can't believe you settled that one. They were going on for 35 years. I settled it in 1 day. And President Putin called me. He said, you know, I can't believe I've worked on that war for 10 years trying to settle it. I couldn't do it. I said, do me a favor, focus on settling your war. Don't worry about that one. What does the United States get out of all of this work, all of this money, other than death, destruction, and massive amounts of cash going to people who don't appreciate what we do? They don't appreciate what we do. I'm talking about NATO, I'm talking about Europe. They have to work on Ukraine. We don't. The United States is very far away. We have a big, beautiful ocean separating us. We have nothing to do with it. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP. But they weren't paying. Most of the countries weren't paying anything. The United States was paying for virtually 100% of NATO. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. But then, more importantly, I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said, we will never go up higher than 2%. But they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5. They didn't pay the 2, and now they're paying the 5. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General, who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago, after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now, after I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today. We have a budget of $1.5 trillion. We're bringing back battleships. The battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II, those great, big, gorgeous ships, the Missouri, the Iowa, the Alabama. Because I thought maybe we could take them out of mothballs. They said, no, sir, these ships are 100, think of that, 100 times more powerful than those big, magnificent pieces of art that you saw so many times ago, that you still see on television. You say, wow, what a force. 100 times, each ship 100 times more powerful than the big battleships of the past. So that was the end of the mothball story. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where if there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice. All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. What we did for Israel was amazing, but that's nothing compared to what we have planned for the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. We are going to build a dome like no other. We did it for Israel. And by the way, I told Bibi, stop taking credit for the dome. That's our technology. That's our stuff. But they had a lot of courage, and they were good fighters, and they did a good job, and we wiped out the Iran nuclear threat like nobody can believe. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. That, Venezuela, taking down Soleimani, wiping out al-Baghdadi when he tried to reinstitute ISIS. We did a lot. I did a lot of big things, all perfectly executed. Everyone was perfectly executed. Somebody told me that, a military expert told me, sir, everything you've done has been perfectly executed. I said, I know. So other presidents have spent, whether foolishly or not, trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO and gotten absolutely nothing in return. We've never asked for anything. It's always a one-way street. Now they want us to help them with Ukraine. And we say, we're going to. I'm really helping, not even them. I want to see, last week, if you saw, it was 10,000 soldiers, but last month it was 31,000 soldiers died. 31,000. That's this room times, the number of people in this room times 30. Think of it. 30,000 soldiers died in 1 month. The month before it was 27,000. The month before that it was 28,000. The month before that it was 25,000. It's a bloodbath over there. And that's what I want to stop. It doesn't help the United States, but these are souls. These are young people. Look like you, look like some of you right in the front row. They go to war. Their parents are so proud. Oh, there he goes, comes back. 2 weeks later, they get a call, your son's head's been blown off. I want to stop it. It's a horrible war. It's the worst since World War II. They keep going, they'll exceed World War II. The numbers are staggering, how many people they've lost. They don't want to talk about it. Ukraine and Russia lost just tremendous amounts. And I'm dealing with President Putin, and he wants to make a deal, I believe. I'm dealing with President Zelensky, and I think he wants to make a deal. I'm meeting him today. He might be in the audience right now. But they got to get that war stopped because too many people are dying, needlessly dying. Too many souls are being lost. It's the only reason I'm interested in doing it. But in doing it, I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. A very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up. And we have an unbelievable future in that stock. That stock market is going to be doubled. We're going to hit 50,000, and that stock market's going to double in a relatively short period of time because of everything that's happening. But this is a good example. After giving NATO and European nations trillions and trillions of dollars in defense, they buy our weapons. We make the greatest weapons in the world, but now we're going to make them faster, much faster. You saw that. I put a cap on the salaries. Then I put no buybacks, no stock buybacks, no various other things that they were doing. I mean, they were making $50 million, but it would take them 3 years to give you a Patriot missile. I said, that's not good. My chauffeur can do a better job than that, and he makes slightly less than 50. They make big salaries. If they're going to make those big salaries, they're going to have to produce a lot faster. The good news is we have the greatest equipment in the world. Now we're going to start making it a lot faster. They're going to build additional plants. And all of the money that goes into stock buybacks is going to go into building plants. We're not allowing stock buybacks by defense companies any longer. They're going to build new plants to make Tomahawks, Patriots. We have the best equipment, F-35s. F-47, the new one just coming out. They say it's the most devastating plane, fighter jet ever. Who knows? They called it 47. If I don't like it, I'm going to take the 47 off it. I wonder why they called it 47. We'll have to think about that. But if I don't like it, I'm going to take that 47 off. But it's supposed to be the Stage 6. It's supposed to be the first Stage 6 plane, undetectable, like our B-2 bombers were undetectable. They flew right over Iran. They were undetectable. And they did their job, and they got the hell out of there. So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. A strong and secure America means a strong NATO, and that's one reason why I'm working every day to ensure our military is very powerful, our borders are very strong, and above all, our economy is strong because national security requires economic security and economic prosperity, and we have the greatest that we've ever had. Biden and his allies destroyed our economy and gave us perhaps the worst inflation in American history. They say 48 years, I say forever, but I think 48 years is the equivalent to forever. Whether it's 48 years or ever, It's terrible, costing the typical family $33,000. What they did to this country should never, ever be forgotten. It's early, but he has to be rated as the worst president we've ever had by far. The auto pen did much of the damage. The auto pen, he was the auto pen president, because I don't believe a sane president would have ever signed the kind of things that he signed. But now grocery prices, energy prices, airfares, mortgage rates, rent, and car payments are all coming down, and they're coming down fast. We inherited a mess, but we've done a hell of a job in 12 months. Under my most favored nation policy for drug prices, the cost of prescription drugs is coming down by up to 90%, depending on the way you calculate. You could also say 5, 6, 7, 800%. There are two ways of figuring that. But we have a favored nations policy that every president wanted, no president was able to get. I got it, and other nations approved it. And I had to use tariffs in order to get it because they said, no way. In other words, a pill that costs 10% in London costs $130. Think it costs $10 in London, costs $130 in New York or in Los Angeles. And I'd say, boy, that's bad. Friends of mine would say, you know, we go to London, you can buy the stuff for nothing. We go all over the world, we could buy it for nothing. Because basically America was subsidizing every nation in the world. Because presidents allowed them to get away with it. It became very tough. So when I called up Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened? But I watched him sort of be tough. But he was at $10 for a pill. And I said, Emmanuel, and I have all the big pharmaceutical companies are in total agreement. It wasn't easy, by the way. They're tough, smart. They've been getting away with the scam for a long time. But they gave it up. But they said, you'll never get the countries to approve it. I said, why is that? Because they won't. They always said, we're not paying any more. Get the rest for the United States. So over the years, they stayed the same. We just went up, up, up. And I mean, we would pay 13, 14, 15 times more than certain countries would. So I said, no, they'll approve it 100%. Sir, you'll never get them to approve it. I said, I guarantee you. But I actually started with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too. And I like him. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it? And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill to $20, maybe $30. Think of that. That means it's a doubling of prescription drugs. Might be a tripling, might be a quadrupling. It's not easy. No, 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 Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no, no, no. You're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, 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 I will not do it. Because he has to, in all fairness to him, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No, no, no. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it. You're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, no, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country, saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, 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 I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years. And they said, we will not do it. I said, that's all right. On Monday morning, we're putting a 25, 30, 50. I gave different numbers for different countries. This is also national security we're talking about. Not fair. We're not going to subsidize the whole world. And every one of those countries have agreed to do it. So one of the biggest things that I've done is the fact that we have now most favored nation. We will pay whatever the lowest price is in the entire world. So our drug prices are going to be coming down by staggering 90%. Again, you could say 1,000%, 2,000%. Depends on the way you want to figure it, but we'll go with the way the fake news likes it better because it sounds, can you imagine a 90% reduction sounds much worse. But drug prices are going to be coming down tremendously in all the nations, and I appreciate them doing it, but they did it, in all fairness, without tariffs. I wouldn't have been able to get it done. After declining $3,000 under Biden, real incomes are up in the United States by $2,000, $3,000, and even $5,000 and more. Home ownership has always been a symbol of health and vigor of American society, but that goal fell out of reach for millions and millions of people in the Biden era because interest rates went up so high. Today, I'm taking action to bring back this bedrock of the American dream. In recent years, Wall Street giants and institutional investment firms, many of you are here, many of you are good friends of mine, many of you are supporters. Sorry to do this to you, I'm so sorry. But you've driven up housing prices by purchasing hundreds of thousands of single-family homes, and it's been a great investment for them. Often as much as 10% of houses on the market. You know, the crazy thing is a person can't get depreciation on a house, but when a corporation buys it, they get depreciation. Okay, that's something we're going to have to think about, too. I don't know if too many people think about that. You buy a corporation, they buy 500 houses. They buy hundreds of thousands. They buy 500 houses. They can take depreciation. A person sweats and works and buys one house, they can't. But homes are built for people, not for corporations, and America will not become a nation of renters. We're not going to do that. That's why I have signed an executive order banning large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. It's just not fair to the public. They're not able to buy a house. And I'm calling on Congress to pass that ban into permanent law, and I think they will. One of the biggest barriers to saving for a down payment has been surging credit card debt. The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury? So to help our citizens recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible precedent, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. And this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house. It's terrible. To unleash innovation in savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to that end, last year I signed the landmark Genius Act into law. Now Congress is working very hard on crypto market structure legislation, Bitcoin, all of them, which I hope to sign very soon, unlocking new pathways for Americans to reach financial freedom. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I thought it was politically good, and it was. I got tremendous political support. But more importantly, China wanted that market too. It's just like they want the AI. And we've got that market, I think, pretty well locked up. If I didn't do it, you know, Biden was totally against it until before the election when they realized that, you know, there were millions of people voting against him over crypto. And all of a sudden they loved it very much, but it was too late. They blew it. But it is politically popular, but it's much more importantly, we have to make it so that China doesn't get the hold of it. And once they have that hold, we're not going to be able to get it back. So I'm honored to have done it. Finally, I've instructed government-backed institutions to purchase up to $200 billion in mortgage bonds to bring down interest rates. And I'll be announcing a new Fed chairman in the not-too-distant future. I think he'll do a very good job. See, I gave away some of it. He did give that away. So we have something, got something, but somebody that's very respected. They're all respected. They're all great. Everyone that I interviewed is great. Everyone could do, I think, a fantastic job. Problem is they change once they get the job. They do. You know, they're saying everything I want to hear, and then they get the job. They're locked in for 6 years. They get the job, and all of a sudden, let's raise rates a little bit. I call them, sir, we'd rather not talk about this. It's amazing how people change once they have the job. It's too bad. Sort of disloyalty, but they got to do what they think is right. We have a terrible chairman right now. Jerome, too late Powell. He's always too late. And he's very late with interest rates, except before the election, he was just fine for the other side. So we're going to have somebody that's great, and we hope he does the right job. Last week, the average 30-year mortgage rate dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. Another major factor in driving up housing costs was the mass invasion of our borders. And I have to say one thing about housing, because nobody ever says this. I am very protective of people that already own a house, of which we have millions and millions and millions. And because we have had such a good run, the house values have gone up tremendously. And these people have become wealthy. They weren't wealthy. They become wealthy because of their house. And every time you make it more and more and more affordable for somebody to buy a house cheaply, you're actually hurting the value of those houses, obviously, because the one thing works in tandem with the other. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the value of people that own a house who, for the first time in their lives, are walking around the streets of whatever city they're in, very proud that their house is worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Now, if I want to really crush the housing market, I could do that so fast that people could buy houses, but you would destroy a lot of people that already have houses. In some cases, they've mortgaged their house, and the mortgage would be very low, and all of a sudden the mortgage without any changes becomes very high, and they end up losing the house. I'm not going to hurt, and I speak with Scott, who's doing a fantastic job, and Howard, who's doing a fantastic job, and all of my people. And I always say, look, you know, I can crush the hell out of the market. We can drop interest rates to a level, and that's one thing we do want to do. That's natural. That's good for everybody. You know, the dropping of the interest rates, we should be paying a much lower interest rate than we are. We should be paying the lowest interest rate of any country in the world, because without the United States, you don't have a country. I mean, I had a case with Switzerland. We happened to be in Switzerland. Maybe I'll give you a quick story. But they were paying nothing. They make beautiful watches, great watches, Rolex, all of them. They were paying nothing to the United States when they sent their product in. And we had a $41 billion deficit. $41 billion with this beautiful place. Flew over it, isn't it nice? So I said, let's put a 30% tariff on them so that we get back some of it, not all of it at all. We still have a deficit, big deficit. We had 41 million. That's a big deficit. And I said, let's put a tariff on. Different tariffs, different places. You're all party to them. In some cases, victims to them. But in the end, it's a fair thing. And most of you realize that. But we put a 30% tariff on Switzerland, and all hell broke loose. They were calling, I mean, like you wouldn't believe. And I know so many people from Switzerland, incredible place, incredible, brilliant place. But I didn't realize that they're only good because of us. And there's so many other examples. I mean, us, probably other places, but a majority of the money they make is because of us, because we never charged them anything. So they come in, they sell their watches, no tariffs, no nothing. They walk away, they make $41 billion on just us. So I said, no, we can't do that. So I'm going to bring it up. I still would have a deficit pretty substantial, but I brought it up to 30%. And I guess Prime Minister, I don't think President, I think Prime Minister called a woman, and she was very repetitive. She said, no, 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 you cannot do that, 30%. You cannot do that. We are a small, small country. I said, yeah, but you have a big, big deficit. You may be small, but you have a bigger deficit than big countries. He said, no, 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 please, you cannot do it. Kept saying the same thing over and over. We are a small country. I said, but you're a big country in terms of, and she just rubbed me the wrong way, I'll be honest with you. And I said, all right, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it. Do not do this. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I made it 39%. And then all hell really broke out. And I was paid visits by everybody. Rolex came to see me. They all came to see me. But I realized, and I reduced it, because I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt them. And we brought it down to a, lower level. Doesn't mean it's not going up, but we brought it down to a lower level. But they pay now, tariff. But I realized that we have many places like that where they're making a fortune because of the United States. Without the United States, they wouldn't be making anything. Think of it. Switzerland made $41 billion on us. And as she said, it's a small place. And I realized with that, I don't know, it was so, because she was so aggressive. And I realized in that conversation that the United States is keeping the whole world afloat. Many places, I could give you 6, 7 places just in the people in this little area. I know every one of them. They're they're looking down. They don't want to see me. They don't want to stare me in the eyes. But they're taking advantage of, everybody took advantage of the United States. But I've been very fair, and I gave them a tariff, and it was fine. But I realized that without us, it's not Switzerland anymore. Without us, it's not any of the countries that are represented here. And we want to work with the countries. We want to work with them. We're not looking to destroy them. I could have said 39, 40%. I could have said I want a 70% tariff, then we make money with Switzerland. But Switzerland would have been probably destroyed, financially destroyed. I don't want to do that. But we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. I hope Scott's listening to this, because we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. Without us, most of the countries don't even work. And then you have the protection factor. Without our military, which is the greatest in the world by far, without our military, you have threats that you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. You don't have threats because of us, and that's because of NATO. One other thing, and I have to say it so importantly, in the old days, and I used to say I'm the youngest in the room. Now I'm among the older. I hate to say it. I don't feel old, but I'm among the older. But I remember not long ago, 20, 25 years ago, when good news came out about, let's say, the United States. The United States had a great quarter. The United States had a great month. All the stocks went up. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Now when they say the United States had a record quarter, it's unbelievable how well it's doing, all the stocks crash because they say, oh no, inflation, they're going to raise interest rates. And they do. Some of these stupid people like Powell, they raise interest rates. And what they do is they stop you from being successful. It used to be when we had a great quarter, a great month, great earnings, great anything, any good news, the stock market went up. That's the way it's going to be. We got to do that again, because that's the way it should be. Now when we have a great month, they want to kill it. Like we did over 5%. People were surprised. We should do 20%. We could do 25%. When we announce good numbers, and the reason is they're so petrified of inflation. And growth doesn't mean inflation. We've had tremendous growth with very low inflation. In fact, growth can fight inflation, proper growth. So we want to get back to the days when we announce great numbers, because we're going to be announcing phenomenal. You know, all these factories that are being built at record, thousands of businesses are being built right now. Remember, $18 trillion is invested. I think the second number is 3. And that was China many years ago. Investments in the country from outside. 18 trillion, nobody's ever seen. And that's money coming in and building things, factories. Thousands of businesses are being built, thousands. Hundreds of big factories, car plants are moving back to the United States. They're coming in from Canada, they're coming in from Mexico, from Japan. Japan's coming in and building plants here in order to avoid tariffs. They're coming in from China, they're coming in from all over the world. We have more plants being built now, car plants, than we've ever had built, even in the heyday from the 1940s and 50s. And they're bigger. They don't use renovations anymore where they take an old plant, they rip it down, they build a brand new plant, super modern plant. But it's happening at levels that nobody's ever seen. In 2024, the U.S. built less than 2 million new homes, but Biden admitted more than 8 million new migrants. And those days are over. In 2025, for the first time in 50 years, the United States had reverse migration. Boy, that was nice. And these were criminals that were being taken out of our country because they allowed people to come into our country from jails, from gangs, drug dealers, murderers. 11,888 murderers. We've gotten most of them out. And then ICE gets beat up by stupid people from leadership in Minnesota. We actually are helping Minnesota so much, but they don't appreciate it. Most places do. You know, Washington, D.C. is the safest place now in the United States. It was a very dangerous place to walk, and now you can walk with your wife, your kids, right through the middle of the city. Right now, Washington, D.C. is as safe as it gets. It was one of the most unsafe, I had to admit. We sent in the military, the National Guard. Within 2 months, it was great. Within 3 months, it's like a really great place and a safe place and a beautiful place. It's even been cleaned up. The graffiti's gone. The fences are gone. We don't have to worry about fences anymore. All of the places, the grasses are cut and replaced with new grass in many cases. It's all going to happen in the spring. But Washington and D.C. is beautiful again, and it's safe. New restaurants are opening up. They were all closing. Now you can't get into a restaurant. Restaurants in Washington, D.C. are all opening. Memphis also, Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana. We're there for 3 weeks. We've cut the crime down by 64%. Within another month, we'll have virtually no crime there. We can do that all over. We're going to help the people in California. We want to have no crime. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. And we're going to, if he needed it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see. We did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good, because we're cutting crime down to nothing. And we're taking people out, career criminals who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it has been amazing, and we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels. We're cutting illegal aliens off welfare and other government benefits, and I have directed that starting immediately, there will be no more payments to sanctuary cities because they are really just sanctuaries for criminals. They're really protecting criminals, and those are the ones we have to get out of the country. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They emptied their mental institutions into the United States. And despite that, we have the lowest crime numbers that we've ever had in the history of the country. Just came out. But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that they turned out to be higher IQ than we thought? I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates, they're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil, and they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified, so they say, just give them the boat, we'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out, we blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats that are loaded up with drugs, including submarines. Can you believe they actually buy small, they call mini subs, very fast. They're meant for drugs. We've knocked out 2 of them. The Democrats say they were fishing. You have ruined somebody's fishing weekend, I would say. A submarine is not a fishing boat. You don't fish. But we've knocked down drugs by water, the oceans, the sea, by 97.2%. Think of that. And I actually say, who the hell are the 3%? Because I would not want to be piloting one of those boats. We knocked them down, and now we're going to start on land. We're going to knock it all out. The land is the easy part. What we did on sea is incredible, and that's our great military. The situation in Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed, it's not a nation. Got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this? Ilhan Omar, talking about the Constitution provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country, and she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you. The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. We live in an incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in. In our hands are technologies that our ancestors could scarcely have. I mean, they couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today. And so rapidly they're produced. I mean, AI, 2 years ago, nobody ever heard of the term, and now everybody's talking about it. And it can have some very good purpose. It could also have some dangerous purpose, and for that we have to watch out. But some tremendous things are happening because of it. And we're leading by so much. We're doing so well. But opportunities that are bigger and grander than ever before in human history are right before us. It is the pioneers in this room. Many of you in this room are true pioneers. You're truly brilliant people. Just your ability to get a ticket is brilliant because you have about 50 people for every seat. I don't know what, that's Larry. Everything Larry touches turns to gold. He made this very successful. But you're in this room, and some of you are the greatest leaders anywhere in the world. You're the greatest brains anywhere in the world. And the future is unlimited, and to a large part because of you, and we have to protect you, and we have to cherish you. I always say we have to cherish our brilliant people because there aren't many of them. So together with confidence, boldness, and persistence, let us lift up our people, grow our economies, defend our shared destiny, and build a future for our citizens that is more ambitious, more exciting, more inspiring, and greater than the world has ever seen. We're in a position to do things that nobody else has ever even thought of before. And many of the people in this room are the ones that are doing it, and I want to congratulate you, and I'm with you all the way. You can do things that nobody else can even think about. So I congratulate you on your tremendous success. And the United States is back, bigger, stronger, better than ever before. And I'll see you around. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is just gone 10 to 2. That was a rather extended speech, wasn't it? Interesting from Dave Moore, who says, Ian, good luck unpacking this speech. Where do you even begin? Macron's sunglasses to big pieces of ice. It's a beautiful piece. Iceland or Greenland? My goodness, says Dan in Kent. The Donald is not holding back on his disappointment of Europe. Macron, Starmer, von der Leyen, Mark Carney, all thrown on the barbecue. Wow. Cliff says, what a speech. Talk about telling it like it is. New holes all round, please. Let's speak with Peter Wilding, author of What Next? Britain's Future on Europe. Peter, thank you for hanging on. We were, of course, originally going to be speaking at 1:30, and it's now 5 to 3. Thanks to the American president. Just firstly, before we get into the question we raised at the beginning, are people Team Europe or Team America? What did you make of Mr. Trump's rather extended monologue?
It's very difficult to pick out the key aspects of that because it is a demagogic, narcissistic way of doing international relations. It's, for all of us, it's new. But I just want to go back to the fact that actually, historically, this isn't new. Autocratic monarchs, Nikita Khrushchev saying, we will bury you. This is the kind of discourse, this was very 19th century. And what we have to understand at the heart of this is the post-war liberal order of international nation states combining together to globalize in a rule-based order has now got its biggest hit in the solar plexus from the very originator of that concept, the United States. And the reason for that is this is happening every 100 years as clockwork. Every hegemon, after a period of zenith, overreaches Iraq, Afghanistan, the British Empire, the Boer War, and every hegemon then starts to pull in. And this is what's happening now. And what is happening with Trump is that the United States says the liberal rules-based order does not protect us. So what we are doing now is creating a new order. It's called a civilizational state order, and it's based on North America. We'll control South America, but we will dominate North America, and the rest of you can look after yourselves. Or, as in this speech quite clearly made clear, we're not a values-based system anymore. It's not all sort of apple pie and honey and peace, love, and rock and roll.
Yeah, it's all gone.
It's economic, transactional. And that is back to 19th century great power politics, and we better wake up to this fact. And frankly, we are. There are voices from Mark Rutte, Emmanuel Macron. They've woken up to the idea. And you know what, Ian? Thank Christ, because it's a good thing that this continent no longer rides on the coattails of the United States, which forever it's been an illusion, this international rules-based order. It all depends on who presses it first. And they never did until Russia and China combined to test the American world order. And that is where we are now.
Could this be a good thing then for Europe? Does that mean America remain our firm allies, but we just kind of recalibrate the relationship? Is that too casual to put it that way, or is it something bigger?
We've got to rethink the way the world works.
Yep.
The world works, in our mind, Ian, you and me, back in the 80s, 90s, there's the West and there's the rest. And you and I, Ian, you're so young, I know you won't remember the Soviet Union, the Cold War. But that was the way it worked. Now the way it works is there is China, there is India, there's the United States, there's Europe. This is back to the kind of 19th century politics where you had, the British Empire, the German Empire, the French Empire, the Russian Empire, the Austrian Empire. So that's where we're going to. So it is, you're right in, this is really, Europe's moment and the United Kingdom's moment to realize that there is power there, but we never had the guts or the institutions to exercise that power.
So in terms of Trump, I mean, many people getting in touch. I mean, obviously Trump, is a divisive character. People who love him really love him. People who hate him really hate him. Usually the truth sits somewhere in the middle of these things. He's obviously got, an interesting, completely original way of delivering news. He can say very tough, controversial things in the most casual manner. He shoots from the hip, he goes off piste, he probably didn't have a script for a good percentage of all of that. Should we fear Donald Trump or should we embrace him?
It's all part of the way that these type of leaders have worked in the past. Behavior and rhetoric is meant to put their opponents off their game, question, and in that space, as he, as a property developer, will have known full well, international relations hasn't been like this for 100 years.
Sure.
And so we shouldn't fear him, but we should play him. And Mark Carney's speech yesterday was absolutely correct. And the European Union on Thursday will meet to possibly hit him in the groin with a coercion tax. But it won't happen because the one thing you noticed in that speech is, I don't want to use force, I just want to talk.
Yeah.
And that was most interesting about Greenland.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a telling aspect. Peter, thank you for your time. I know we could have spoken for a lot longer, but Peter Wildin, author of What Next? Britain's Future on Europe, also the man that first came up with the word Brexit. Did you know that, factoid fans? Talking of facts, I tell you what, the fact checkers are going to be having an absolute field day on that speech, particularly the domestic stuff at the beginning. He talked about China, biggest producers of windmills, but they don't turn them on. That's actually not true. The biggest wind farm on the planet is in China. And Chris makes the point. They said, I love the bit where Trump said that China sells windmills to stupid people. I wonder whether or not Ed Miliband is listening to that. But Stephen says China used more wind power than Europe and the US put together. More comment from you coming up right on the other side of the news. Don't go anywhere.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back. We've been through a lot of political speeches over the years. I think that was one of the longest, about an hour and 15 minutes. Donald Trump speaking in Davos. He spoke domestically. He spoke about Europe and he spoke about Greenland many, many times. Essentially saying to Denmark, look, it's all we're asking for. It's a big piece of ice. It used to be ours. We'd like to retain it. We'd like to run it. We'd like to be the head honchos in it. Did he have a point? What did you make of the speech, by the way? It's divided the room in your comments coming through right now. More on that in a couple of moments. Also this afternoon, the number of people claiming Britain's main benefit without having any need to seek work has risen by 1.5 million since... You might go, what, since, I don't know, COVID? Since Margaret Thatcher was in power? No, since Labour have been in power. So in 18 months, it's risen by 1.5 million, which means the number. New figures show there are almost 4.2 million people on universal credit with no work requirements. These are unsustainable figures by anybody's standards. This follows a surge in mental health claims. Where does this story go next? It's only going to go in a similar direction. Thoughts on that? And the Home Secretary has told police forces that the police should be on the streets and not working behind desk jobs. Every Home Secretary has come out with this old guff for years. For goodness sake, make it happen. Give the police what they need. Give them better powers. Put more of them out there. Allow them to do the job. Don't hanker them with all manner of wokery and goodness knows what else. Just let them be the police. Has she never seen life on Mars? They were the glory days, kids. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Comments coming through. This from Carl in Norwich. What a speech, he says. Reference Trump. What a leader, what a man. How I wish we had someone like him in charge of our country. He's so positive about America. The haters are always going to hate him, and that won't change. However, even those can't say it was not an inspirational speech. All the best, says Carl. Thank you, mate, for that. And one here from George in Shortlands. Put your feet up, Ian. Half a day's work for a full day's pay. Trump went on there more than the missus. After I've had one too many down the pub. He really did. It's a double-edged sword sitting here, by the way, because you kind of sit there thinking, right, I want to get back into this, but the speech is going on, and it's interesting, and there's lots to talk about, lots to dissect. You kind of don't want to lose your mojo a little bit. Let's speak on this and the other benefit story that we just mentioned. Rupert Lowe, MP, is with us. Rupert, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Well,
how are you?
Very good. Nice to see you again. I mean, Trump doesn't do things by halves. I knew it was going to be sort of rip-roaring stuff. And of course, the one thing about Trump, he doesn't say something about somebody in one room and then when he's in the same room with them, completely changes it. He literally just says what he thinks. He names them, he shames them, he claims them. He'll do all of that. If nothing else, he's brutally honest.
Well, it's quite refreshing, isn't it? Don't you think, to hear somebody say what they actually think?
Yeah.
And one of your viewers said, it is refreshing. And I agree with him. I mean, I don't always agree with everything that Donald Trump says, but at least you know what he's thinking. I was trying to work out whether he was ad-libbing it or whether he had an awful view.
I think they'd seen a bit of both. That he went off-piste and then he went back on it.
It could have been a blend of the two, but I mean, credit to him. He's clearly got views on everything, and I think voters and people who are effectively affected by what he's saying at least know what he's thinking, and he does speak without forked tongue. And I think what you're seeing is what I call realpolitik, which basically is re-emerging. Yeah. And having spent time in the European Parliament, I actually prefer realpolitik and bald honesty and truth to the sort of Machiavellian, Orwellian doublespeak that you get from what I call professional politicians. And
Indeed.
They are responsible largely for a lot of the demise that we now are all suffering from. So I think Britain needs somebody like Donald Trump, who is going to cut through the Gordian knot of what I call a sort of banal and very often divisive sort of statism, hold the civil service to account, cleanse the House of Commons, cleanse the staff who now are now more powerful than the MPs in Parliament, and actually start to make decisions that are in the interest of the British people. And we saw last night, you know, a terrible decision on the Chagos Islands.
Yep.
With one breath, Keir Starmer was saying that he thought there should be the determination of Greenland should be decided by the Greenlanders, which I agree with. And the next minute, somebody asked him about the Chagos Islands, and because he and his sort of human rights brigade friends, who in my view should all be in prison, you know, he finds some justification for handing over the Chagos Islands, which we'd actually paid Mauritius for in the 60s, without consulting the Chagossians, most of whom live in Crawley. So the whole thing is sort of racked with contradiction, and I think everybody can see that.
Yeah, and that kind of rather brings us back to the point, doesn't it, about, you know, how we want our politicians, the honesty, the way they speak. That, you know, Trump doesn't always get it right, of course, but there is something about that. That difference. And whenever I see Starmer or Cooper or Lammy, these people stand up, you know they're reading from a script written by a spad who probably went to one of those obvious universities, and it's all written in very clipped, clinical tones. There's no real passion behind it. You see Trump speak, and you know this guy is on fire, even if you disagree with much of what he says. I noticed, Rupert, you tweeted earlier today that you want a country that doesn't have to always rely on America, a proud, strong, independent Britain that stands up for its interest and its interest only, which is exactly what the Americans have got with Donald Trump, and you'd like to see some of that over here. Are we? We're not going to get it in the next couple of years, that's for sure.
I think, Ian, what we want is to be led by somebody who believes in Britain, which Donald Trump clearly does believe in America. And, you know, any form of success has to start with a belief, common purpose, and common sense and logic. So I think most sensible people now want to see that here. We haven't got it. What we have is basically statism on a grand scale. And you could argue it's possible that we've become over-democratized, and that is being exploited by largely the legal profession, probably by organized crime, certainly by a lot of the people who are coming to live here who aren't integrating in Britain. And the net loser, I'm afraid, is the honest, decent, law-abiding, tax-paying Brit. And it's time that they stood up, because if they don't stand up, Ian, I think things will just get worse and worse for them. And I don't think now is the time to be acquiescent and just take it lying down, which is what people have done so far.
And you mentioned statism and the bill for the taxpayer, which brings us on to the story that we were originally going to talk about, Rupert, and that was this just jaw-dropping cost of universal credit. The amount of people claiming risen by 1.5 million since Labour came to power. I had to read that twice. I thought that there was an error in the reporting of that. So this is 18 months, 1.5 million people. Mental health is the issue. Now, I do understand that if you put Keir Starmer and his cronies in power, you are likely to create a mental health crisis just by dint of them being there. So maybe there's something to be said about that. But notwithstanding people who've got genuine challenging problems, we all understand that. But surely we cannot have, it's not sustainable, Rupert, to have now 4.2 million people claiming universal credit with no requirements for them ever to go to work.
It's ridiculous, Ian, and I see this now. I'm on the Public Accounts Committee. I see this every single week. We meet twice a week and we question various civil service departments led by these unaccountable permanent secretaries who are very often imbued with sort of DEI and other sort of misguided philosophies, which they have spread across the entire civil service, most of our sort of educational system, and almost every sort of organ of the state, every sort of NGO or whatever. So I also, one of the people who works for me in Great Yarmouth, who's fantastic, worked for the DWP for 22 years. So it's the DWP who effectively administer this complete and utter mess. They are not fit for purpose. They're all as soft as boiled maggots, and they basically hand money out like confetti. There are no sort of responsibilities to the taxpayer, the honest, decent taxpayer, which there should be. You've also got doctors who are complicit in this because they are effectively dealing with the work capability assessments, which they are too soft on. So what's happening is then very often these communities who haven't integrated get quite aggressive with the doctors when they ask them perfectly fair questions. The doctors find it easier to issue a note saying they're not fit to work.
Yep.
And then you get these huge numbers of people who claim they've got mental health issues. Well, I think we need to start getting real about this. We need to start getting tough about it. And we have actually been posting about this, and I think most sensible people in Britain totally agree with us. We think that there should be much more scrutiny. We should be much tougher on these, what I call claims for welfare, which are neither provable nor disprovable. And, you know, if people are continuing to live their lives perfectly normally, they should be scrutinized, and they should be, after they haven't worked for a while, and first of all, I wouldn't sign them off for life, which is almost what we're doing with a lot of people, so they can actually sit on welfare for the rest of their lives without working. I would actually make them go and clean graffiti, go and help older people who need help, basically, you know, go and actually do some form of community service, which is a benefit. So, you know, I find it absolutely staggering that so many young people, and by the way, I'm with the young people because I think there isn't enough opportunity for them. Rachel Reeves is effectively, as you've seen from the latest employment figures, people are chucking employees overboard, because when she says she's for the working people, what she doesn't understand is the working people are a function of the people who employ them. And if you penalize the people who employ them to such an extent, they don't employ them. It's not worth their while. They've already got all sorts of statist fetters on them. You know, people who employ actually have to pay vast amounts of national insurance, collect it, deliver it to the state. They have to collect vast amounts of pensions now. They have to collect vast amounts of PAYE. They are effectively abusing the private sector. And what they want to do is grow the state. They're all Fabans. They all believe in statism. They're almost communists. And what they actually want to do is destroy the private sector and have everybody. And if you just listen to them in Parliament, you know, today Ed Miliband's come up with another quango for his, you know, his new heat plan. Another quango, another unaccountable body, and we're talking about them tomorrow. You know, all of whom build their own little empires. They have their own set of professionals. They run up huge costs, and who's the net loser?
Yeah,
honest, decent, middle England who pays their taxes and lives honestly, decently and legally.
Indeed.
So I am getting increasingly irritated by everything I see. And if you want me to go absolutely incandescent, don't mention Motability, which is one of the biggest national scandals, which is all part of this as well. So somebody needs to get control of it. And as I said at the Public Accounts Committee the other day, we're not going to be able to change it with the people who are currently in charge. So somebody needs to go in and give the bullet to a whole lot of these people and start to bring somebody in who actually has a will to change things and make it work for the taxpayer.
Indeed, metaphorically speaking, of course, just for the Ofcom fans.
Saying people who failed, it fails again. And
Indeed.
that's what's going to happen.
Rupert, listen, let's do a whole separate conversation as well about Motability, because I know you feel incredibly strongly about that. Beautifully put, and great to have you on, Rupert. Thank you. Have a fabulous afternoon. Rupert Lowe, independent MP, leader of Restore Britain. You heard what he had to say. A lot of that is common sense stuff. Speaking in, I guess, you know, the similar tones in terms of the Trump thing, where the departure from the pre-prepared script that I referred to, those days for many are going. They're dying. We need a renaissance, phoenix from the ashes, a new type of politics. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reid, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Loads of comment coming through. I thought it was interesting. I got this from Mickey, and I don't know whether Mickey's been on the Funny Juice. He sent this at the beginning of the show. He says, Ian Collins reverting to his usual presidential bashing. I'm sure Ian is a bit of a closet socialist. You actually won the bingo today, Mickey. I can tell you that much. I'll tell you why in just a second. And one that came in from Paulette, who said, if I can just find it, here goes Collins with his anti-Europe nonsense again. If you love Trump and America that much, Collins, why don't you just move there? I don't know how two people heard the same thing. Mickey, you didn't hear a single moment of Trump bashing. Not a moment. You heard me give out some facts and figures of what some people think and are saying. You didn't hear me in any shape or form. You think you did, but you actually didn't. And Paulette, similarly, you also didn't hear me say anything massively pro-Trump. I kept it right down the line on that one because I'm interested in the question, which we put out right at the beginning, are you Team Europe or Team America? And for that reason, I gave no view at all. But confirmation bias is funny. And interesting, the reason why Mickey won the bingo is because he played the socialist line and won. So if you don't like Trump, the measure is you are therefore a socialist, not a J.D. Vance fan, who's the man I want in the White House. It's weird, right? It's just weird. Let's move to this story. The Home Secretary has told forces that the police should be on the streets and not working behind a desk. We've heard this so many times. Shabana Mahmood has scrapped a grant for police forces that provides additional funding if they meet officer headcount targets. Let's speak to Norman Brennan, former cop, 30-odd years in the job, knows it backwards, talks regularly on law and order and helps us out with these kind of stories. It's kind of the same old, isn't it, Norman? I mean, it's just every time, oh, we want more police on the beat. We hear them say it. We don't often see them do it. Afternoon, by the way.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ian. Compliments to the new year. It's going very quick. It's a bit like those Spanish hotels, Ian, where you walk into the reception and you hear the same CDs so often that every time you walk through, you know the exact next song that is likely to come on. Now, you and I have known each other for 20, 25 years. It's not going to happen. It's smoke and mirrors. Yeah. If you look back at Theresa May under David Cameron back in 2009, they reduced British policing by 22,000 and tens of thousands of backroom staff. That means you had fewer officers to walk the streets. They had to do backfill. It was at that point, if anybody wanted to know, when the police lost the streets, that they did. And they've never been able to regain them. There was a massive recruitment scheme put together, if you recall. Hundreds of the wrong types of officers were recruited. Many of them are being put away for very serious crimes. And now bringing us right up to date, and the subject that we're discussing is that these 13,000 new officers here, they're not new police officers. Yeah. They are 5,000 PCSOs. They are not warranted. And most forces now are actually getting rid of many of their PCOs because of budget cuts. The other 5,000 are special constables that are unpaid. Yep. They are warranted, but they work about 4 hours a week, so that's not too much help. And the other 3,000 are being taken away from park departments that are already beleaguered and short of staff. You and I, Ian, and the people listening to this programme that are of our era, we will never see the type of policing that you and I grew up with. and I'm ashamed to say that, and I absolutely despair for what Britain has become.
Is that, Norman, is that because of this government, or could we have another government that could return to when things were, as you would see it, far more effective?
It's not going to happen. We're recruiting the wrong types of people, and as a friend of mine, Peter Blexley, rightly highlighted, most chief officers now, they're so obsessed with promotion that they neglect the needs of victims, of protecting and reassuring the public, and as importantly, Ian, of looking after and ensuring that junior officers are rightly looked after and not controlled, but well maintained in so much as all of their needs for carrying out frontline duties are concerned. So the chief officers are absolutely detached from frontline policing. We know the 9 Pelian principles were basically this: police officers need to be on the streets, they need to be visible and seen, they need to interact with the public, they need to reassure the public, engage with the public, and ensure that they get information on those that are blighting their lives and committing crime are exposed. We then go and arrest them, put the cases together and put them before the courts. That's what the 9 principles of Pelian policing from 1823. They're gone, they're rest in peace, and they are in the History Museum, Ian, never to be returned, sadly.
Norman, very thorough stuff, very passionate stuff as ever as well. Thank you for your time. Norman Brennan, former cop. He did 3 decades more, in fact, in the job, and still speaks regularly, particularly with us, on the issue of law and order. What is going on with Donald Trump? Lots of comment on Mr. Trump. Joanna in Salisbury says, wow, you can see a real president. None of the UK or the EU have kept their agreement for decades. The US has been carrying us. How is the EU going to say we don't owe him? You can see on a map where he intends to build an Iron Dome similar to the type that Israel has to protect America. What a vision. The Iron Dome, of course, is not entirely new in that conversation. What is new at the moment is resurfacing the idea of doing it. I think Donald Trump even said, is that a bit of breaking news, when he was giving that speech. Lots of comments on the fact check-in. And many people pointing out that I said as well. In fact, I think I said it during the break to the guys here. All of the stats and all of the facts and stats that Donald Trump gave out, if every one of those were to be true, and this is what people are now picking over, would Donald Trump not have a 100% approval rate? Now, obviously, you've got daft socialists and Democrats that would never say that, even if they were all suddenly made millionaires by the state. They wouldn't do that. So why is Donald Trump's approval rating only the same as Joe Biden's was at this same point when Biden was in power? What would be the reasoning behind that? Lisa's in Northern Ireland, says, if only Rupert Lowe was our Prime Minister, he's always full of common sense. He's the same as Donald Trump. What you see is what you get. He's also the only MP that keeps raising the issue of barbaric halal slaughter. It's a really good point. That's the voice you want. Even if you didn't pick Rupert, you want that kind of voice. We don't have that. We haven't got it, definitely haven't got it in Keir Starmer. Would we have it in Kemi Badenoch? I'm not sure you'd have it in Nigel Farage, but that presupposes that you would be a reform supporter. I want to see it in all politicians, regardless of party. Matt's in Cheshire. What do you make of it? Matt, we asked the question at the beginning, Team America or Team Europe? Where are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Ian. Can I make just a quick, genuine request?
Yeah.
I'm wanting to run in May as a councillor candidate, and I've been failed by Reform to support me. Could you pass my number to Rupert Lowe and ask him to give me a ring? Because I'm actually looking for somebody genuine to sort of join, or I'm going to run as an independent. And I've got all the sort of similar. So you're not getting the paperwork back from Reform, or not getting a reply, or what? I joined and I was told I didn't have a significant enough online presence to be a councillor, even though I've done more for my area than anybody in my area.
Now that's really interesting, isn't it? The online presence thing, is that becoming a crucial factor in selection then?
it looks like it might be also a convenient excuse to put in people that they prefer who climb the greasy pole.
But I don't know whether they have that amount of people yet. I know David Ball is working like a dog to try and get the right people. So unless there is somebody very particular in your neck of the woods, Matt, that is, you know, on the team list already, I don't know.
Unless it's Rupert Lowe, about 50 people have told me I'm the best person to run, and they have lived here all their lives.
Right.
And the people making the decisions haven't.
Well, it wouldn't be Rupert Lowe for reform, would it?
No, I understand that. That's exactly why I said give my number to him, because I'm disenfranchised also.
Well, I'm sure we can find a way to connect in some shape or form. Listen, tell us about Trump, Matt. What are you making of what you heard? It was a long speech. It was thorough. It had amusing moments. It was very self-congratulatory, but that is Trump. Did he do the job, and what did you make of it?
People forget he used to be a businessman and a TV presenter, so he's good at doing after-dinner speeches. When he does the bit where he you think he's lost track, he calls it like circling back to the original point. Basically, he's testing the media so they think he's lost his mind and he's going to lose his train of thought, but he always goes back to it. As a British person, we all hate the bit where they congratulate America. It's sort of sickening to us because we can't do that. But on the bit where he annihilated 30 years of the liberal order in front of them all, very like Millet did the other year, I just think that is just astonishing. He basically is like slapping the legs of a naughty child and just saying, listen, you're all pathetic.
I mean, that's where he's spot on, isn't it? And when he makes that point about the kind of liberal order, you're then forced to wonder what it really means. And I don't fully know what it means. I don't think anyone fully knows what it means. But I know what it feels like because we're living through it. We're experiencing it. And that sense, I go back to my go-to example, Matt, of the clinical press release that gets read out. That, to me, is a very good and most obvious example of the liberal order. There's no real passion. It's kind of politics by numbers, and they've opened a kit like you would an Airfix kit as a kid. And someone said, this is how you do government in Europe, and they've just followed it. But there's no real philosophy there.
They're just words, Ian. They're just sort of buzzwords for those kinds of people. What's liberal about it? Allowing millions of people into a country that nobody voted for.
Sure.
What's liberal about allowing men to sort of knock women over in sport and injure them? These people are utterly deranged, and I'm amazed he didn't chastise them even more than that.
I thought he was quite tame, actually.
Yeah, he was. I thought he was just going to say, basically, you lot are responsible for all the problems. I
loved his kind of reliving of a conversation with Emmanuel Macron about prescription drugs, which was very effective. I'm sure Macron was sitting there going, "I've got no memory of this ever happening. I don't care if it didn't. It was a very good story, and it made the point about America, who have been essentially financing so many other parts of the globe, and the American economy has been suffering as a result." He was bang on. I've got to run, Matt. We hit the clock. Great call. Thank you very much indeed for that. And hopefully Matt does find a way to stand and represent the people of his neck of the woods in the next election. Richard says, great show, great speech, but I wish Donald Trump would big himself up from time to time. He's so demure. He should give himself a pat on the back now and again. Yeah, there's a bit of shyness, isn't there? I think that's what it is. They walked in the room, they said, "Donald, it can be done." I said, "It can be done." It's a beautiful thing. There was a lot of that. We'll take more calls and comments in a few moments' time. Just gone 3:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It was I suppose the Thatcher-Reagan era felt like the adults were in the room, didn't it? That really did have a sense that, and I caught the tail end of it really because I was mostly a kid. But yes, that era where there was a common sense, grown-up feel. Not everything was correct, and there were things that went wrong, of course. But as a general rule, a cracking example of how we could have, and we were at that stage, of course, common market maybe, but we weren't fully ingratiated in this EU super dream like we became. America was doing its thing, the Cold War, the wall was about to come tumbling down, all of that. There was something about it where our relationship with the US was incredible. I know times change, and maybe it cannot be refound, that relationship, but I hold out as a positive that we maybe could. Let's move to this story, because this cropped up as well during Trump's speech. Labour preparing to flood the UK with Chinese-made solar panels as it tries to deliver its pledge on bringing every household energy bills down. I mean, the maths is, it's such a juvenile thing to say, we're going to make you pay out this and it's going to bring your bill down. None of it makes sense. So much for attempting net zero. How much energy is that going to damage the environment, constantly bringing over solar panels from places like China? There is that as well. And I'll just mention Chris's message again. I love the bit where Trump said that China sells windmills to stupid people. Let's speak to Maurice Cousins, campaign director at Net Zero Watch. Afternoon to you, Maurice. I mean, Trump, it was brilliantly entertaining to hear him talk and compound his dislike for windmills, although I don't think he was quite correct on his assessment that China, makes loads, they put them up, but they don't use them. But that's another story. Nonetheless, everywhere else is obsessed with them, and no one more so than Red Ed Miliband. He's going big guns on the windmills, big on the solar panels, and today he's resurfaced his passion for heat pumps. Is there no stopping this man?
No, there is no stopping him. He has got the law behind him, and we have to deliver net zero emissions by 2050, and these energy plans are a part of that, really. So no, there's nothing that we can do at the moment to sort of stop him, bar an election where both the Tories and Reform have obviously said that they would ditch it, and that's the way that we can get ourselves back to energy sanity. But I think you're right to say this is mad, and the two stories are sort of linked, because you were talking about Trump and then you were talking about Miliband. Really, Trump and the Americans, the reason why they are concerned about Europe is they don't think that we're pulling our weight. And so often when we talk about defence in the context of Europe, we talk about it as a financial problem. Yeah. We're not spending X percent of our GDP on defence. But actually it's a more fundamental problem that we've got with the defence of our continent. And it's an energy one, and it's an industry one. Hard power is downstream from both of those. If you produce lots of energy and you've got lots of industry, you are in a good position to defend your interests. And the Americans just don't think that we are doing enough to pull our weight in this new world order. And Trump, he says it in his usual sort of New York property developer kind of way, but there's an inherent truth there, which is that we are not serious. And you've got people like Ed Miliband saying he's going to spend £15 billion on, upgrading our homes. Just to put that into context, that is a quarter of the defence budget. 1/4 of the current defence budget. It is nuts. On a form of power generation, solar, for a country that is ranked 229, so 229th out of 230 countries in the world for solar potential, according to the World Bank. So I think only Ireland is ranked lower than us, right? We do not benefit from. Just look out your window and look at the sky right now. It's grey out there. We are not blessed with with high potential for solar. So it's time we got real. The world is getting harder, and we need to start to get real about energy. We need to get real about defence. We need to get real about industry.
Donald Trump, in that speech, talked about North Sea oil. He mentioned it yesterday in the White House. He mentioned it again at Davos. He said the UK is sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. Hard to argue.
We're mad. I mean, there's no other ways of putting it. It's not just North Sea oil and gas. We've got onshore oil and gas, which we're not doing. We've currently got a ban in place, and we've reaffirmed that after the invasion of Ukraine. We need these sources of energy in order to be able to strengthen our economy and to put us in a strong position in the god-awful event that something was to break out on the continent of Europe. There already is a war in Europe. People forget this. There is one. It's going on in Ukraine. And, if something was to happen, God forbid, if the Americans were suddenly distracted with China, or if, there's a dispute, this dispute with Greenland becomes ever more serious, we are in a really serious situation, and we're going to need every bit of energy that we can get our hands on, including North Sea, including shale gas, and including coal. And Trump is right. It is absolute madness that we're not doing what we should. We're taxing a lot of these businesses out of existence, and we're banning new oil and gas licenses.
But here's the thing, Morris, this is the bit you're missing, of course, and that is that we're saving the planet, for goodness sake. We're saving the planet, we're saving the animals and the little newts and the Amazonian green bat, or whatever it is, because, if we start digging that oil stuff, that wicked toxic stuff, then they're going to die, and so are we. So that's what Ed's doing.
We're doing no such thing. We're doing no such thing. The reality is that little old Britain is responsible for less than 1% of global emissions. If we reached net zero tonight, it would make not a jot of difference to the balance sheet of global carbon emissions, not one jot of difference. All we have done is offshore all of our emissions to China, and we're still reliant on all the technologies that we're importing and all the goods that we're importing. And they're being produced using coal. I know it's become a bit of a cliche to say all of this, but this is just the reality. We are a fossil fuel civilization. We rely on these things in order to be able to keep ourselves going, to defend ourselves. If we get rid of fossil fuels, China, United States, Russia, all these other countries, they are not going to do it, and all we make ourselves is prey to much larger beasts out there that we don't want to be subservient to.
It's a great way to put it, a fossil fuel civilization. Love that. Morris, thank you very much indeed. Morris Cousins, who's campaign director at Net Zero Watch. Thank you to him. This one from Anonymous. The more I listen to Donald Trump, the more I realise we are being governed by Bolsheviks. Long live the Donald. Jess says, shall we ask America for America back, as we owned it once? What a twit the Donald is, and to give him that much space to slag off Switzerland when he is in their country. That has been echoed by a couple of people, but I would say outbalanced by the many who were very impressed by what Donald Trump gave, the speech that Donald Trump gave in Davos. Michelle says, it takes a lot to bring me to tears these days, but Trump managed it. We're being treated so poorly by our so-called betters. It was a lesson, a schooling in another way to do politics. What about the hybrid in all of this? Could you get the European and the American hybrid? That's what I felt we had with the Reagan and the Thatcher thing. Anna is in Wigan on solar panels. What have you got for us, Anna? Afternoon.
Hello there, Ian. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. What are your thoughts?
So I have just recently decided to have solar panels put on my own roof.
Okay.
My roof is so well situated that I can produce quite a lot of energy, and I'm not doing for the green reasons.
Just to try and save a few quid?
Just I try to save a few quid and also earn a few quid. So if you are producing quite a lot of electricity on the solar panel, you can actually sell it back to the grid.
True.
And that was my plan.
Yeah.
So I invested in quite a big installation. And then I received a letter from the grid saying that if you do want to sell the electricity at this output, this much power, you have to pay us first 990 quid plus VAT, just so we can prepare a quote as how much is it going to cost you for us to upgrade the grid on your street, the call control boxes, in order to be able to take that electricity.
Hang on, so it's going to cost you so if you sell them electricity because you've produced it, they want you to give them £1,000 essentially, or over with the VAT, in order for you to be able to facilitate that transaction.
It's not even that, it's only to prepare the quote.
Oh, to prepare the quote for it, right. So we won't give you a quote without you giving us a grant. I mean, Tony Soprano couldn't get away with that.
Absolutely. So that's my thing. That's the moment when it hit me. The entire government tries to push for us to go green, install solar power panels. And I am not a benefit taker, hence I have to pay for everything out of my own pocket. So my installation is £14,000. So plus that is $1,000 to quote, and then I don't know how much that upgrade is going to cost. It could be a grant, it could be a 5.
Yeah.
I've got no idea. So if you not to go for it.
No, I hear you. Anna, if you didn't do the selling back thing, and I'm sure at some point you'll be able to, but if you didn't do that, what does it mean for you personally? What does your annual bill, gas and electric, look like now compared to what it will look like once everything's up and running, or assuming it is up and running?
So it's not up and running just yet. I'm waiting for them during winter. Obviously, they don't put installations on for safety reasons mainly.
Mm-hmm.
But it means that I will pretty much be paying nothing, because what I will be overproducing during the summer period when we have a lot of sun, and thanks to the beautiful climate change that we have a beautiful summers recently. Thanks God for that, bring more of it. I will be able to put and save enough money for the sale of a summertime into the account. Wintertime, when I produce less,
yes,
I will be able to use that funds to pay for the winter period, which is pretty much goes on the calculations I was told by the installer that I will be almost at zero.
Right, so
I will
it should...
obviously have to pay the cost for, having the electricity meter, etc., etc. That's the standard cost that, you cannot get away with that.
Got it.
But for the use of the power itself, it's pretty much going to be zero, and that was my aim.
Yeah, indeed. Well,
obviously.
Yeah, and then to sell some back and make it even better. Listen, I hope it does. I hope that bit you can jump the hurdle at some point, Anna. Thank you very much indeed for that. I have no problem understanding the concept of solar, all right? We've done so many phone-ins on this. Forget, it's not about net zero or signing up to some kind of green agenda, just the whole thing of solar. The science behind it, it obviously can work. Now, there might be times when it works better than other times, and the storage issues, I get that. That bit, though, the basic principle, putting a solar panel on your roof, it creates energy from the sun, and it fuels your home. Really easy to get my head around that. The windmill thing, a bit more of a struggle, because there are issues around too much wind and not enough wind. I think that's a fairly... almost unreliable in order to predict or know. But the heat pump thing, I very rarely hear anybody say, oh, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. Other than people who either install them, so they work for a company that pays them, essentially, to say that, or from people who own the companies. Darren is in Surrey. Back to Donald Trump, Darren. What did you make of it? Afternoon to you.
Well, just afternoon, just quickly. You do realise that AdBlue you're putting in your wife's Evoke is pig's urine?
What's pig's urine?
That AdBlue you're putting in your wife's Evoke.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to have done that.
Urine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're paying 20 quid for 5 litres of pig urine. There you go.
Well, how do you know I haven't got a pig?
Well, it could be a long time trying to get 5 litres out.
Could have a couple of little porkers in the back garden, but yes, you're absolutely right.
Sorry to go back to you. So anyway,
not at all. Go on, Darren.
I was just saying about. I was listening to your show and a speech earlier.
Yeah.
And I was sort of laughing because I think there was a couple of lines he was being a bit mischievous, and normally you'd expect, when someone does like a corporate speech or something and they flow through sort of anecdotes in and people have a little bit of a chuckle. There was no chuckles. There should have been. Like the anecdote about the woman that was getting on his nerves, talking about tariffs and then and he said, "Well, I'll put them up to 30." There was a bit of mystery about it.
I wonder because there was I think possibly two things there. You've got a big audience, and quite a few of them may not speak brilliant English, and Trump has a certain way of speaking. But I don't think the audience was particularly mic'd up. So every now and again you heard a little bit of a response. But I think it was one of those. I've seen a couple of examples where someone's shown me a stand-up comedian where the comedian had a microphone, but there was no microphone in the audience, and it sounds like the guy's dying on his backside. But actually, he's really good. It's just that you can't hear the audience. So it might have been a little bit of that. The humour thing and he exaggerates a little bit. We know that. And, he did his Macron impression. I quite liked that. All of that was really good. But, there are many people who say, I can't take this man seriously because we don't know, is he making this stuff up? If America was, in 1 year he's done this, really?
I think he's got serious points, but he's just trying to I think he's got a way that he tries to engage with people.
Yeah.
And also, so he's how trying to make people feel comfortable and everything else, but also make his point and be very assertive about his point.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I've just listened to another channel to listen back to Prime Minister's Question Time, and you thought and the opinion there is completely the other end, because I do like to try and listen to a spectrum. I don't want to get stuck in an echo chamber. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is interesting to see and hear rather other people's opinions.
It really is.
The same thing.
And you have to then strip away what is obviously their own political bias or own political view. You have to try and strip that away from, whether it's a Republican or whether it's a lefty, whatever, and then try and somehow, kind of get to the truth. The bit that I find interesting at the moment, Darren, about what is going on in America is the immigration deportations, which are no greater than they were under previous presidents. But he's filming so much of it that it's popping up on the TV every single day. The evening news is full of these guys who are breaking doors down and saying, hey, Santos, come with me, and taking these characters back to Mexico, etc. Now, that probably acts as a deterrent. I think it does. So he's done a better job than... He might have deported just as many or fewer in some cases, but he's stopping the problem at source. That's the deal.
That's an interesting word you use there, deterrent. Maybe you could just, I don't know if you got his contact number, but just text Keir Starmer and explain what a deterrent is.
What a deterrent looks like. At the moment, we have nothing but an attraction. We have an absolute...
Exactly.
a complete... what did... Even Macron said it, didn't he? We have a... what's the factor? Not an attraction factor, but in that ballpark.
A pull factor.
A pull factor, that's the word. We've got a pull factor until we get rid of that. Brilliant. Darren, listen, I've got to run because we've hit the clock. You've been fantastic. Great talking to Darren, and I'll say hello to the pigs for you as well. Darren in Surrey. Thank you to him. 0344 499 1000.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel...
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
This one from Just Me, who says, Ian, at this particular time, I'm Team America. Reason being, they're patriotic, proud, motivated, and can carry guns. Well, I laughed at the last bit. Whereas here in Britain, we're not allowed to be patriotic, not allowed to be proud, and not allowed to carry guns. Yeah, I mean, the gun one could be a bit controversial, but, I mean, look, the protecting yourself and then being protected by the law, if you protect yourself, I think is the wider point there, isn't it? You know, even the police fear going into a melee because someone's going to say, yeah, I think you'll find you were a little bit over rough with that young scallywag. What, the fella that just beat up the old lady? Yeah, I was a bit rough with him. Funny that. Let's go to Sarah in Somerset. On the issue of Trump, America, Europe. Which one are you, Sarah? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Well, I just called in quite a while ago now. I have to remember the genius that I had at the time, and your question was, you know, should we be on Trump's side or should we be on Europe's side?
Yeah,
well,
Team Europe, Team America.
It shouldn't be America versus Europe. Surely it should be the free world versus a communist state.
Yeah.
And that's what it's really about.
What it really is, isn't it? And we were kind of in that ballpark with, I mentioned the Thatcher-Reagan thing. I mean, I might be looking at this through, I don't know, young eyes as I was at the time, or, you know, reimagining, you know, how brilliant it was. It seemed like, and of course it was full of, you know, it wasn't a straight road for those guys. They had troubles too, but it did feel like the grown-ups were in the room, and we did have a great relationship, not dependent on the EU, a fabulous relationship with America.
Absolutely. And the problem with the EU is that, unfortunately, they are unelected bureaucrats and they're not really listening to the people. So there's a big split there, isn't there, between the likes of the wonderful Italian premier, who I love, Meloni, and the likes of the German councillor, Macron, who seem to think that they will literally put their hands over their ears, not listening. And our government's the same. They haven't been listening to the people. And unfortunately, they have swallowed this ideology, and it's not working out very well. Okay. And the problem with Greenland isn't about the territory. It's about the actual polar orbit, because I think that Russia has an awful lot of military things already stationed in the Arctic. It's got loads of bases. It's got more bases than NATO. Have you heard this?
So Greenland, did you say?
I think Russia has more Arctic military bases than NATO.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but I can well imagine that they've got that, or they're trying to get that area covered, and maybe that is, you know, Trump's kind of, you know, he made it quite clear, you know, this is logistically, strategically, geographically, politically very important. And he essentially used that speech, of course, to say, you know, I just want Greenland. He was quite honest. Sarah, I've got to move. The end of the show is upon us, as is Peter Cardwell.
Hello, sir.
You might not have heard about this, but Donald Trump gave a speech this afternoon.
Did he?
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was just quick. It was just a quick.
Right.
He did it in Daventry, I think.
Daventry? Right, okay.
Yeah.
They have excellent chocolate there, Toblerone.
Great. Yeah, he had some Toblerones while he did it. He was done and dusted in 2 minutes.
The way forward, brought home a cookie clock. All good in the hood?
All good in the hood.
Did you honestly think, Ian, that we'd be sitting here on Wednesday still talking about Greenland, still talking about Donald Trump and what he wants to do?
It was the first time we really heard him lay it out in the way that he did, when he said,
unsurprisingly,
I just want this, it's a piece of ice, we used to have it, we gave it to you, can we have it back? Because we think strategically and in defence terms, it makes perfect sense. Now, I